So I'm going to put this onto you. So just remember, what you're saying. This is your story. So if you forget something, your cheat sheet up there on the wall. So if you get stuck, right, forwards and backwards. If you want to point, it's just a little sunshine.
Okay.
Okay.
So wait, this one's
Forward. And if you go the wrong direction, no big deal. Right? So you want to hold it kind of close to your mouth so that you can so we can hear you. Miss Herndon, I need you to introduce.
so do you need a microphone? Yes.
I want to welcome everybody here, grammar school current students, guests who are here, parents, judges. Thank you all for coming out. We want to kick off presentations today, right? And show off the amazing work that a lot of these students have done and worked through from summer, fall, and into winter and spring. So first we'll start with Abigail Midas and Learning Locally, Teaching Children Orange County History.
Hi, my name is Abby Midas, and I did my project about teaching children Orange County history and making it more interesting for them to learn about. So a couple months ago, I realized just how much I like history. There's so many different sides to every story, and I really like to study all the different sides and perspectives that there are. I also love local history because so much has happened right where we're standing and in the miles surrounding us that's important to Orange County culture and to the country as a whole. About the same time that I realized how much I like history, I realized that very few of my friends like history, and even fewer enjoy it the way that I do. And when I talk to some of them, they mention how they think it's boring, it's repetitive, and they're learning the same thing year after year. A large part of this is because of the way that history is taught growing up. It's the same names, dates, facts, it's memorizing them year after year, and by the time they get to high school, there's not much new that they have to learn, and they begin to lose interest. So I decided to do my research on the question, what are the best ways to get children interested in history? To get a wider range of information, I did an interview with Mrs. Persinger, a 4th grade teacher, and Mrs. Conley, a 7th grade teacher. I found that one of the best ways to get children interested in history is to allow them to think about the content on a deeper level and to take an inquiry-based approach. Instead of just telling them the information, allow them to come up with it themselves. And you can ask them questions like, why do you think this happened? Or what are the potential consequences of an action like this? So they're able to explore the topic a little bit more. And if they're really interested in a certain topic, maybe they'll be more interested to go and research it at home. Another great method to teaching children history is to make it interactive by using primary sources and field trips. Primary sources are great because it shows that these people were real, they experienced an important time in their lives, and their perspective needs to be remembered. Field trips are great because kids always love to skip a day of school to go on a field trip, but they end up learning so much that they wouldn't otherwise learn in the classroom. They're able to be immersed a little bit more in the history, see and smell and kind of experience things about what life would have been like at that time. So they might become more interested in what those people faced at a time like that. Another great method to getting children interested in history is to relate the content to the present day. A lot of times they're not going to care about a person that died 100 years ago or a war that happened 200 years ago on another continent because they don't see how it relates to their lives. If they're able to see that lessons can be learned from things that happened in the past that can be related to their lives, they might become more interested in learning more. A great way to do this method is to have them talk to their grandparents or great-grandparents about an event that happened during their lives and what they learned from it, so they can see that lessons can be learned from history and can be learned from today. I did my professional learning experience at the James Madison Museum of Orange County Heritage. I went on August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th for 4 hours each day for a total of 12 hours. My mentor was Miss Jessica Thompson, but I also worked with Miss Walters and Miss Liz to get a wide range of information and perspectives about different pieces of Orange County history. While I was there, I attended museum tours that were hosted by my mentors and created an inventory of the gift shop, which sometimes involved counting the same book 120 times, but it also involves looking at different souvenirs that have to do with Orange County history. While I was there, I learned a lot about how museums are run on the business side with checking people in, allowing them to get tickets, and buying items at the gift shop. And I learned a lot about Orange County history, both the well-known and the lesser-known information, which I left my professional learning experience wanting to share with the people around me. I did my community service with Mrs. Conley's local history class at Prospect Heights Middle School. I took her students on a field trip on November 8th, but I also worked with them before then and after that for a total of 18 hours. Before the field trip, I worked with Mrs. Conley to apply for a grant to cover the costs of the field trip, which we thankfully won the grant. And I also worked with Mrs. Conley to reach out to the people at the different locations that we wanted to visit to see if they would lower the cost for Orange County students, which they also did. The first place we went on the field trip was Montpelier. The students got a tour inside of James Madison's home, including the dining room, his bedroom, and his study, as well as several other rooms. They also got a tour of the slave quarters outside of his home. The tour guide was amazing. He knew so much about James Madison's life and about Montpelier's history, and he was able to teach it in a way that the students found very interactive and entertaining. He asked lots of questions to the students, questions that even I didn't know the answer to, but her students were constantly participating and answering them, and a lot of them knew the answers to the questions that I didn't know the answer to. After Montpelier, the students took a lunch break at Barbecue Exchange in Gordonsville. Mrs. Conley pointed out that a lot of her students may not get to try food like this, maybe because they can't afford it or don't live close enough to it. So she wanted to give her students the opportunity to try food that is important to Orange County's history and culture. After lunch, the students went to the Exchange Hotel in Gordonsville. For those who don't know, the Exchange Hotel was a hospital during the Civil War, and it became a hotel in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So inside there are rooms that have exhibits like what life would have been like in the 1800s and 1900s in Orange, as well as lots of artifacts about the Civil War in Orange. I later found out that the students preferred the Exchange Hotel because they were able to see what life was like at that time and really experience it. I had a conversation with one student while we were there about how much pain people who were in the hospital during the Civil War must have faced. We were in the same room as people who suffered maybe during an amputation or with a gunshot wound. And so we were really able to feel for those people and just imagine what they had to go through at that time. After the field trip, I went back to Mrs. Conley's class for a few days to help her students work on a brochure about the project. Here is one student's example. There's a title section, a section with a review of the restaurant, and a section about the place they visited that was not necessarily their favorite, but that they still learned from. Here's another student's example about, this is the section about their favorite part that we visited. Here's really where I saw my impact because the students were able to take what they had learned, what they liked, and some of the pictures that they used, and put it into a project about what they had learned. I also hope that through my project, these students will go home and tell their family and friends about how much fun they had on the field trip. So maybe they will go and maybe their family will go and want to visit these places in the future, and everybody can learn more about Orange County history. I also hope that these students will go tell their friends about Mrs. Conley's local history class so that those students will take her class and maybe go on a field trip like this in the future. One piece of advice that I have for students who are going to be completing this project in the future is to really make sure that you pick something that you're passionate about. I love working with children and I love learning about history. So to be able to combine the two made this project so much fun, and I learned so much. You're going to be working on this project for almost a year. So if you're researching a topic you want to learn more about and you're learning with your professional learning experience and doing your community service to something you enjoy, this project is going to be really fun. I learned so much about myself through this project. Before this year, I had never considered being a teacher, but seeing how much I love working with students and children and I love learning history, I did consider being a history teacher in the future. I also learned how to get more comfortable reaching out to people that I've never talked to before, maybe never thought to reach out to. Next year, I'm going to attend the University of Virginia to study international relations. My love of international relations comes with my love of history because I love to look at events that happened in the past, events that happened or that are happening right now and see maybe if they could have been prevented or how they can be studied using the different international relations terms, because a lot of events that are happening right now are almost identical to events that can be predicted with international relations. Finally, I want to thank Ms. Herndon and Ms. Carlton for all of the help and for all of the questions of mine that you've answered this semester. I want to thank the judges for being here, and I want to thank Ms. Thompson and Ms. Conley for taking time out of your day to work with me and teach me a lot about Orange County history and helping me complete this project. And finally, I want to thank my classmates for all of the support, for all of the ideas you've given me, and for all the laughs we had, not even just this semester, but throughout all of Governor School. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
So what was the age group that you took to
So Mrs. Conley's class has 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders. It's a combination. It's a lot of 6th graders, but it's all
Did
grades.
you like that age group?
Yeah, because a lot of them were really interested, and they were at the age where they were able to like know and like remember and like really understand it a little bit more. So, and we could have conversations, like adult conversations about history, but also like they had a lot to learn, and like missing school. Yes.
Especially with the diversity presented in college, what if any challenges did you face involving race or slavery?
I think it wasn't necessarily that much of an issue. I think for the students to be able to see what the slaves had to go through and the tiny little homes with like, especially seeing it right after Montpelier, how nice that house is, and then not the slave quarters, the students did see that as really interesting, and they were really able to like get a grasp of it. Yes. Just like this. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'm excited. Thank you. What? Thank you so much.
Going second is Emma Olsen, Local Solutions to global problem, litter in the ocean.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emma Olsen, and for my senior capstone project, I worked on improving environmental consciousness in Orange with the goal of helping to combat the global litter crisis on a local level. So what led me to my project idea is my passion for the environment and my love for the ocean. While we don't live directly on the ocean here, the environmental choices that we make in Orange do affect it. And so I wanted to do something with my project that would have a positive impact from here and help to combat the 33 billion pounds of trash that enter the ocean every year. So when I first started researching some of the barriers to environmental consciousness, I was finding that particularly in rural and local communities, there's a lot of misconceptions regarding environmental issues. People who live in rural communities are more likely to not believe that things like the litter crisis and climate change exist than people who live in urban areas. And so I came up with the research question, what are the best ways to address this lack of environmental consciousness in local communities? And I found that the answer lies in the education of youth in three primary ways. So the first is innovative environmental education programs. So rather than doing lecture-based learning, doing like hands-on engaging things that allow the students to connect more with the material and retain it better. So that's things like field work and lab work. It just makes the material more interesting for the students. Second would be to increase the amount of time that kids are spending outside. This allows them to build positive relationships with the environment and develop protective values over it. And also the more time that they spend outside, the more likely they are to encounter environmental issues. For example, like seeing the trash that litters the landscape. And so the less likely they are to not believe that those types of issues exist. And then the third method would be to destigmatize positive environmental behavior. So particularly in middle and high school age brackets, there's kind of a peer pressure to litter if your friends are doing it, or also kids kind of consider it lame to like pick up trash because, I don't know, they just don't think it's cool to like care about the environment. And so in one of the studies that I read through, they did a school-wide challenge where a certain amount of money would be donated to a program that helps to save dolphins, depending on how much campus litter was reduced by. And it was very effective in reversing that peer pressure stigma in the school and reducing campus litter and kind of making the positive environmental choice the new norm. So overall, these three methods, innovative education, increasing the amount of time that kids spend outside, and dismantling any stigmas against positive behavior are all very effective in instilling positive values. And the people who were exposed to these types of methods at a young age report that later in life they are making personal choices considering the environment in their lifestyle. So for my professional learning experience, I worked with the Keep Virginia Beautiful program. They are a nonprofit environmental organization based out of Richmond, and they do litter pickup events and litter awareness campaigns. I worked with them from June to August over the summer for a total of a little over 10 hours. And I was able to go in person to one of their pickup events in Richmond on the James River. So I helped pick up trash before it flowed into the Chesapeake Bay, and they called it the Clean the Bay Day event. My mentor at that experience was Mr. Roger Eidelman, one of their primary event leaders, and he was able to give me some advice as someone who was hoping to run my own pickup event later for my community service. He suggested always surveying the land ahead of time to look for potential hazards. An example that he gave was slippery mud in case it like rained recently, and to always make sure that volunteers are being safe, that they're wearing proper personal protective equipment, and that they know not to pick anything up that could be dangerous to them. The rest of my PLE was served virtually, so I would join their staff meetings and take notes on how they planned for events. It was very eye-opening into all of the work that goes into planning environmental pickup events, like months prior to them actually happening. My mentor for that experience was Miss Christy Lawton, the executive director of KBB. And both of my mentors are pictured on the bottom right. This is a screenshot from one of our meetings from over the summer. Overall, my PLE was very significant to the rest of my project. It gave me some perspective on what this type of environmental career would look like, and it also gave me some pointers for my community service down the road. So for my community service, I wanted to combine things that I learned in my research and my PLE. So I did end up working with younger students at the Boys and Girls Club in Orange, Virginia. I worked with them from September to November for a total of a little over 20 hours. And my mentor there was Mr. James Miller, the director of the Boys and Girls Club. And my service was split into two categories. So the first was gardening activities. We would go, this kind of goes in hand with the spending time outside so that the kids can like build a positive relationship with the environment. We would go to the club's garden across two of my visits, and we weeded 2 full beds. And it was cool to see the kids getting excited about pulling up big stalks of weeds and like getting competitive with it. We were also able to compost the weeds, so that was another environmental plus. The second part of my community service was litter pickup activities. This was done with the 4th and 5th graders at the club. We would walk over to Prospect Heights Middle School and pick up trash on the way. And the kids were also surprisingly engaged with this too. They were always excited to find like the cool pieces of trash, like broken sunglasses and like their favorite chip bags and stuff. So I was excited to kind of involve them in an environmental solution this way. Also under that litter pickup branch, I designed a field trip for them to come to the high school and pick up trash here because I was noticing throughout the year there's a lot of trash flying around like everywhere. And so we were only out there for about an hour picking up trash, but we picked up enough to fill 4 of those like big industrial sized trash bags. So I was pretty impressed with that. Overall, I would say I learned a lot about myself throughout my community service. I hadn't had a lot of like prior leadership experience with younger students, and so this kind of gave me practice in that type of role. Also, we were able to have like a tangible impact on the environment here in Orange. We removed countless bags of trash and like before it went into pollute the ocean. And then lastly, I hope that I was able to kind of like spark their interest and maybe plant the seeds for environmental consciousness later in their futures. In terms of advice that I would give future Governor School students, just pick something that you are interested in like I did. It makes the project really rewarding. And try not to let it overwhelm you because it is a lot, but it's doable if you stay on top of it. I also plan to attend the University of Virginia in the fall. I'm not sure what I'd like to major in yet, but I'm definitely interested in kind of exploring the environment and seeing how that could pertain to a career for me in my future. Lastly, I would like to thank Ms. Hernan and Ms. Carlton for their guidance throughout this project, Governor School for the opportunity of completing this project, and all of my mentors who allowed me to come in and serve my project under their supervision. And I'd like to thank all of you for listening. Are there any questions? Yeah.
So were there any parts of it that were hard or a struggle for you?
The hardest part for me was like initiating my community service, like going in and like talking to people that I'd never met before and kind of like leading younger students. But as it progressed, I got more comfortable in that role and it turned out to be a positive experience.
Will that help you?
I think so.
Your opinion, do we have a more prominent problem with a single use? Or, I'm sorry, that doesn't, basically what I'm thinking about, like, did you talk more about single use plastics or anything like that? Or was it more just?
Yeah, there's definitely a single-use plastics problem in this school. I've noticed that there's like a lot of plastic like with the lunches and stuff, and it's like flying around outside. And so we encountered a lot of pieces of trash, like different types, but definitely plastics was something that we saw a lot and we were able to kind of pick it up. And
For your internship, did you develop any plans for this to continue on with these trash pickups in the future?
I didn't, but I'm definitely interested in pursuing like environmental community service throughout college and like in my future, doing probably participating in litter pickup events because it is something that I'm passionate about. So.
You mentioned in your presentation that you hope that you can. I'm curious to
It kind of stems back to a project I did in my freshman year where I did with another Governor School student. We researched about climate change, and it kind of like interested me in the topic and kind of sparked my passion for the environment. And I was realizing how like the things that we do here definitely impact it. And so slowly my interest grew, and that's when I decided to do something environmental for my project. I wasn't, but I can look into that if you're interested. That's so
Up next is Taylor Mills. Women are the future.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Mills, and for my project, I chose women in leadership positions. I chose this topic because of the relevance it has in our community today. There's really only one soccer team in Orange County, which is known as Orange Fire, and within this, there's just not enough leadership that's going to impact every single female or person who's trying to grow and get into leadership positions. In fact, in 2020 and 2022, over 55% of our children population was not receiving the right amount of social and overall health and development goals. And things like this can be fixed with the right leadership and right impact, because leadership overall just helps with social well-being and just overall behavior and attitude changes. For my research question, I asked, what are the best methods to recruit young female athletes into leadership roles through soccer? Most of my research came from the UVA database, my community service internship, and overall just research I did on my own. With this, I came up with the best 3 methods, and the first is a mentorship. Mentorships are working alliances between different age groups. They can look a lot of different ways, but most often mentorships are based on the 3 C's, which are communication, connection, and collaboration. A mentorship is really important because you never know what a child is going through. They could have just lost a family member or just be going through financial or just hardships on their own where they don't have a role model to look up to. So having a mentorship is just a way to bring people together, and a mentorship not only affects the mentee, but affects the mentor because you are able to stay connected in youth ages and just stay like in the loop with everything that's going around. The second solution is positive energy and positive learning. This came mostly from my internship because my mentor was so good at it. Positive learning can be influenced not only in sports, but in school and just any other social reaction that you have with people. Positive learning is just so important because the energy you give off and the energy you're willing to give out to others just radiates off yourself, and it helps people just grow and know that they are confident and able to do whatever they want. The third solution is celebrating women's talents and women's achievements. Starting in 1987, the National Girls and Women's in Sports Day was created. And this day is just a day when people come together, all women in sports, and they just appreciate each other. They celebrate each other's individuality, athleticism, and overall accomplishments. My Skyline Elite team even does this, and this is a day when we come together and we just do a fun event to know that it's more than just soccer, it's more than just a sport. We're all just here to have a good time and just lean on each other. We do fun activities like cakewalks and just simple things like that to make sure everyone knows that they're heard and they're important. This is my internship mentor, Ashley Williams. As you can tell, she's really positive, and there was never a single day where she didn't show up 45 minutes early for her training sessions. She is just overall a great leader. She is the GA, which is Girls Academy Director, and Skyline Elite head coach for multiple teams. She helps with anything that the girls need. She's the one you go to when you're trying to get recruited. She travels as far as California and Florida with her teams and is just overall a nonstop support system for them. Ashley is just the pillar of positivity, and the girls know that as soon as they show up to the session, they know it's going to be good because of the energy that she radiates off. Here's where I did my internship. I completed a total of 12 hours for my internship, and this is South Fork Soccer Facility, which is where I completed my internship. I also did most of it at STAB, which is another soccer facility in Charlottesville. Here is just pictures of new uniforms that they were getting. I was sorting and making sure every child got exactly what they needed to thrive. She also let me lead fun engagement like warm-ups and do the stretching activities just to make sure everyone was prepared for the day. This is Jason Lohr. He is my community service advisor. He is a very unique coach, and he is the head coach for an Orange Fire all-girls team, and they range anywhere from 9 to 11 years old. The girls know that they can come to Jason with whatever they need, whether that be soccer related or just about their life in general. He will support them, and he's so unique because he not only helps the children, but he helps their families too. Jason knows exactly how to coach each person. Each person playing soccer is just so coachable in their own way. Some girls can get yelled at, and then others shut down and have a complete meltdown. But he knows exactly what way everyone likes to be coached, and it just helps him thrive. These are some of the girls that I did my community service with, and through this, I basically just went to their practices, their games, and their tournaments. I helped set up and take down cones and was overall just a role model for them. I was able to join in the practices and just help each and every one of them thrive. I later completed my community service by head coaching them in a winter showcase where they played throughout December and January, and every Saturday. They played in a all-girls league, indoor league, where they all showed like their passion for soccer, and I was so proud of them. They all came together and was just able to really do what I know they could do. And I was able to put everything I learned in my community service, my internship, and research onto them, and I know they benefited just as much as I benefited from it. Here's a picture of them as a whole. And I was able to do just what Jason was able to do and figure out how each one of them was thriving and each way they like to be coached. I learned about myself that I'm a nonstop cheerleader for others, and I just really like supporting others, finding how they thrive and how I can put all my information on them so they can grow up to be exactly who they want to be, which is amazing for me. And the bonds that I made with these girls was just unimaginable. If I were to do this project again, I would definitely start my community service or my internship earlier, just because of how much fun I had doing it. And advice for future seniors, I would say that to do every assignment with intent and sincerity, because the more you work at it now, the easier it will get in the end. And for me personally, I was never the best writer, so having Miss Carlton or Miss Herndon look over my information and really just help me with my outline just helped me get the grades that I wanted in this class and be exactly the person I wanted to be in this class. In the future, I will be attending Emory and Henry University to play Division II soccer and major in biology on a pre-med track. I would like to say thank you to all my fellow classmates for struggling through this with me, and my teachers for their nonstop support, and all of BRBGS just for supporting me and making it a less stressful event, and the judges for being here today. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
So do you think that you'll coach soccer in the future? Like, will you keep doing that? Or?
Yeah, I might do it like on the side, but it won't be like my main thing. Yes.
Would you say growing up, did you have an athlete that you loved that really brought the positivity that you saw?
Honestly, I always grew up with my brother and he played soccer, so he kind of just inspired me to keep playing.
Research. What did you find? What kind of qualities did the girls develop during your community service that would lead to think that women are leaders in soccer?
Honestly, just they definitely grew in confidence over time. The more like time and effort I put into them, they just really like came out of their shell and were able to help each other. It's like since they saw me helping them, they were able to help each other grow.
Just checking the sides up. Is everything good? No, I just said no, I just had a fear that it's like gonna get messed up. Like randomly. What's going on? And if it is, then you just move on and talk about whatever that is. Mm-hmm. No. It's your story. They don't know that. This is your I don't tell people. I usually put this. I'm like shaking. Yes. Starts spinning. Automatically calms us down a little bit. Oxygen. Mm. Practice. Mm. This is forward, backwards. Mm. Okay. Exit, push that. Okay. Okay. Forward, back. Okay. Hopefully I'm not the first one. Let's hope. Falcon or ranger on?
850.
Okay. I'm way control. Person up there just. It's a little distracting. Control. Yeah. Hopefully not. Let's hope. Okay.
Angelina Crane is going to talk about implementing animal-assisted therapy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angelina Crane, and for my research, I studied the benefits animals, more specifically dogs, hold on mental and physical well-being. This research question stemmed from my love from animals. I have 2 dogs at home, and if I'm ever having a bad day, whether I'm sad or mad or just in a bad mood in general, I always look forward to coming home and seeing my dogs because I know I'll instantly feel relieved. I know many of you probably feel the same way, but I wanted to understand why that was and how I could possibly help others feel this way. In the US alone, there are 57 million people that struggle with mental illnesses. 1 out of 59 children suffer with autism, and over 30% of residents in residency homes, such as rehab establishments, nursing homes, or other residencies, suffer with some form of mental illness. These statistics stemmed my research question of what are the best ways to implement animal-assisted therapy into everyday lives to better overall mental and physical well-being. And with this, with more research, with the UVA database, and talking to my teachers, I came up with my big 3, which are implementing them into educational systems like high schools or colleges. I know there are colleges that have already started doing this. You can see there are colleges that have them at their therapy rooms, like just around campus in general. The second is implementing them into residency centers like rehabilitation centers because animals brings the sort of non-judgment factor that humans cannot. So in rehab centers, they're more willing to do the work because they feel less judged. And lastly, putting it out there on social media because one of the main misconceptions about animal-assisted therapy is that it doesn't have an impact on people as a whole. It's not real, it's not true. Dogs are just a pet. But it is scientifically proven that even being around an animal for just 15 minutes releases the production of happy hormones, which is oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine in the body, which these kind of give you the non-stress factors. They reduce your anxiety levels, depression levels, and all types of that sort. So for my PLE, this is Ryan Tasker. I worked under her and Phyllis Schmulin at K9 Counselors Boarding and Training. Here I worked hand in hand mainly with Ryan, but I did get to learn a little bit from Phyllis, who was the creator and who has been training dogs for over 30 years. Now Phyllis, she's great at what she does. She will go into the home, she reads the animal's behavior, and then she brings them back into her home. So they don't have territory marked in their home. You know, they have territory marked, but here they have no one up on the other animals. So what she does is she reads their behavior, she brings them back, and she gets them on a schedule. You know, she makes them eat at a certain time, go to bed at a certain time, play at a certain time. If they have negative behavior, she has negative reinforcements or positive reinforcements depending. So here is me. This is Jack. He is actually Ryan's personal dog. He came from Mexico. He was transported to the United States and put in a shelter, but he does suffer from ADD and anxiety just because he has the pack mentality from living in Mexico again with other animals. So here's us. We are doing leash work, which is very important, allowing the dog to understand how to obey their owner and understand you're not the one in charge, it's me. So basically what we did was we just had him walking on a leash, and you're supposed to be side by side. That's how it is. And if the dog would go forward, there would be negative reinforcements, but it's mainly with your body because animals, they can't speak English. You can't have a conversation with your dog. So
the best and most positive way is to use your body to make them understand, okay, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Here is kind of this is what Ryan sent me. It's about the body language, because the most important thing I learned personally from this experience is how important it is to read and understand their behavior before you do anything, because it's important to know what's going to happen next. Like if a dog is playing with another dog and their skin's up, their ears are behind their back, they're obviously stressed out, and you want to be able to intervene before something happens. And like, for example, if you have a dog and its tail is curved and relaxed, then it's happy. It's not feeling any stress. But if its tail is tucked between its butt, then it's feeling stressed, and you want to intervene in the situation to understand and better a relationship with the animal. Another example is, which was really interesting to me actually, you're not supposed to see the whites of a dog's eyes. And if you can, it actually means that they're stressed out. It's called a whale eye, which is was really interesting for me to learn, because you never understand that eyes can really be a telltale of how an animal is feeling. And I also completed 15 hours of community service through September through November. This is Gina Jenkins. I completed my community service under her at the Orange County Animal Shelter. My time here, I spent a lot of time just working with the dogs, playing with them, doing whatever was needed, whether that was sorting things in the shelter or doing the laundry, just anything that they needed at the time. But I also wanted to do something at the end of my community service that would not only fulfill my project needs, but help out the animal shelter, because they do run strictly off donations and the help of the community. So with the help of my coach, Lori Mills, and my teammates, we created a week-long donation drop-off center at our home games for soccer. The boys team also helped out with this, and we were able to fill the entire trunk of my coach's car, which is really awesome to me because it was only a week long, and we only had about, I'd say, 2 to 3 games within that week. So it was really cool and special to see everybody come together and kind of put everything together. But at the end of that week, we went to drop off the stuff, but not only did we do that, but we spent time with animals, and this was really cool because we did have a very stressful 2 weeks before that. We had many home games that went into overtime, and as you know, as an athlete, that's a very stressful situation. Not only do you have games, but you have your education. Lots of us are applying for scholarships, getting ready for college, and doing all the other factors, so it can become very stressful. But being around the dogs brought a lot of smiles to each and every one of us. This is Echo. He was definitely a fan favorite, as many of you know. He did not like to walk at all. He was a 9-year-old oversized dog, so walking was a bit of a struggle for him, but he brought a lot of smiles to the girls and overall was just so loving. And to me, it was really special to see us all come together and have a lot of smiles and laughters with each other, just because we got to be around the dogs with such fun and different personalities. Like every single dog that we were around was different. You know, there was the crazy ones that were jumping everywhere, or the shy ones that were kind of scared, but once you got to know them, they were all lovey. And actually our coach said that our energy was very high after, and that was one of the best games she had seen us play all season. Overall, I think this experience has taught me that my passion and love for animals has made me want to continue my education and study this in college. I think that I love helping the people that can't help themselves, because, you know, you see these animals in the shelter and it's like, why would somebody do that? You know, they can't survive on their own, but you can, and you're treating them like that. Like, it just does, something about that just doesn't sit right with me. So I really wanted to do everything that I can to help these animals. My advice for incoming seniors is to do something you're passionate about. And I know a lot of people say that, but it is true. This is a year-long project, and you're going to be doing this, again, for a year, your entire senior year. So you really want to do something that indulges you. I know for me, I was really scared about my research. I've never been a good writer at all, but once I started, it flowed super easy because I was passionate about what I was writing about, and I wanted to know more. So with that being said, after high school, I plan to attend Virginia Tech and study animal and poultry science on a pre-vet track. I would like to give a thank you to Ms. Carlton and Ms. Herndon, all the other BRVGS advisors, my classmates, and most importantly, my professional learning experience mentors, and community service mentors. Thank you, and are there any other questions?
What was the most difficult part of this?
Definitely getting my professional learning experience, because when I first started, I thought I wanted to do something at the veterinary clinic, but like obviously that's very hard. I kept getting denied. And then it wasn't until I talked to Miss Carlton and we were like, why don't you try to do something that really relates in like animal training? And luckily I had a friend of a friend. You know, you never know. It's also really cool how many connections you have just by asking one person. They're like, oh, I know somebody that might help you out.
Through your internship, how did you find that relation between like dogs and impacting mental health on students in like our local area? As you had mentioned, like the autism stuff, but how did that connect for you?
Okay, so like the therapy dogs, like they have to be trained. Like you can't obviously just have like a, random dog that's it has to be well behaved. So that kind of like correlates, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Sorry.
As someone who's had a therapy dog and gone into different facilities, find that that's something that you want to do, or is like lifelong goal or job opportunity?
I think community service, because I do want to like focus more on like the medical side and helping like the dogs in general.
Did you find like more of a hospital environment with the dogs and where you implement?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Guys, we're gonna take a break until Lucy walk begins, right, at 5. It's really to Kayla Houston's Breast Cancer Fighting for a Cure.
Good morning, my name is Kayla Houston, and for my Blue Ridge Senior Capstone project, I decided to focus on cancer, specifically breast cancer. For my project, I chose this topic because it was dear to my heart, as many women in my life, including my grandmother, have been faced with the diagnosis of breast cancer. Over 20 million people are diagnosed with cancer across the world each and every year. So most of the time when people hear the word cancer, they think of death, which is not the case. So it stemmed my research question of what are the best ways to dealing with a medical diagnosis. And from my research from UVA databases in my community service and professional learning experience, I discovered that the 3 best ways to deal with a medical diagnosis.
Good morning, teachers. Just a reminder, there should not be any students out in the hallway at this time. We have a lot of students out after the tardy bell today. There should not have been any e-hall passes issued. Thank you if you would for not sending students out without a hall pass. Thank you.
So the 3 best methods of coping with a medical diagnosis are going to be a healthy mentality, spiritual relationships, and community support, which this will look different for each and every patient as everyone goes through different things in their life and believes different things. So I completed 2 different internships for a total of 16 hours over the course of September and October. My first internship took place with Stephanie Inskeep. She is a registered nurse at Culpeper Medical Center. The UVA Health Infusion Center is where she works. So with her, I was able to follow her around for 2 days, 5 hours each, and I watched her administer pre-meds, run labs, and actually do chemotherapy treatments, which I learned a lot about chemo throughout this process. I knew that there was a bunch of different kinds and obviously to treat different cancers. But through this is an example of the push method, but there is also the typical like infusion. There's also a med port, which the patient actually wears their chemo as like a fanny pack over the course of their treatment, and it is connected to their heart, because it has to go in through an artery because it's so strong and powerful that if you were to just inject it through a regular vein, it would obliterate their veins. So I learned a lot about cancer and the types of treatment. Also, I was able to talk to the patients that were sitting there getting their chemo, because it is a multiple hour long process. Some people are there from the time the clinic opens to the time they close. So I was able to talk to a bunch of different patients and try to see where their headspace was based around their diagnosis. And I know one woman especially, she had already had a previous cancer and now she was facing breast cancer. And she had a very positive mindset on it. She talked about how her community was such a strong support system for her. So she had a really positive outlook on it. She was sitting there with her breast cancer blanket the whole time, and she was like, I'm going to beat this thing. It will not stop me. And so I was able to learn a lot through patients and through my mentor. The next internship that I completed was with Jennifer Norrod. She is a physical therapist at Powell Wellness Center in Culpeper. With her, I got to it was a day where she had like all oncology patients, which was amazing. So I got to see her work with like 4 different patients. And of course, as we know, chemo is very hard on the body. So there was a variety of patients that day. Some were having great days, some were not. One lady couldn't even get her treatment for the day. One man wasn't feeling up to par, so he didn't go as hard as Jennifer would have liked him to. And then another lady was feeling amazing, and so she was able to go even farther in her treatment. So through both of my internships, I got to see both sides actually receiving treatment and then trying to recover from it. This is the place, the physical therapy, like tables, of course. You can see the exercise machines that they worked with. For my community service, I also completed 2 different community service. All these took place through the month of October. And totaling just over 21 hours. So the first one was also under Jennifer Norrod. I volunteered at the Pamper Me Pink event, which is hosted by UVA, and Sharon Clark, which is the founder of Pepperberries and Culpeper. With this, starting off, we filled goodie bags for all the people at this event. This event is again, Pamper Me Pink. It is designed to promote breast cancer awareness, basically. The name Pamper, a bunch of survivors come, they can get pampered, they can listen to a panel of judges, and they basically just told their stories. So there was 4 different people. They weren't all breast cancer. There was different types of cancer. One of them was as young as she was diagnosed at 19. So it was really cool to share stories, hear stories, see all the people. It's a positive way because, again, cancer, while yes, it doesn't always go in our favor, it's not the end of the world, and there are people that are there to support you along your journey. So this was 500 goodie bags that we packed for all the people in attendance of the event, and I think we had just over 520 people who showed up. My next part of community service, I served here at the high school with my mentor being Miss Hoover. She is my OC Fanatics advisor, so I went straight to her when I decided that I wanted to try to bring it into the school. As we know, we have a breast cancer game every single football season, Friday nights, Pink Out, so I knew I wanted to incorporate it into that because, one, it's school spirit, it can help get the kids involved, but also show support to our community. So through her, I decorated the stands. I tried to promote this game maybe more than normal, I guess. But I decorated the stands with posters that I had made. You can kind of see them there, but there was also streamers, balloons. I had a banner. I also created a t-shirt for this event, which is how I plan to leave my legacy. This t-shirt I sold for $10 each. And the proceeds are currently in the process of being donated back to Pamper Me Pink because, on top of awareness, Pamper Me Pink provides free mammograms to those who cannot afford them. So I raised just over around $200. So like I said, that's in the process of being donated back to them once we get that financial aspect figured out. But yeah, so I hope that through these t-shirts, people can continue to wear them. They're not going anywhere unless you throw them away. So So through this project, I learned about myself that medical field is 100% my calling. I loved every aspect of dealing with the patients, the interactions. It was truly heartfelt, heartwarming. Some things are so sad, but then some things it's like you realize that this is what you're meant to do. You have a heart for it, and I believe I have the heart for it. So next fall, or I guess this coming fall, I will be attending James Madison University to pursue a career in nursing. While unfortunately I don't think it will be in the oncology side of things, definitely nursing. So I'm excited to see where I end up on that. And I just want to say thank you to my mentors, my both at school and in my community service and internship. And thank you to everybody else. I'm open to questions.
So you said not oncology.
No.
What type of nursing?
So after obtaining my BSN, I am planning to go back to school to become a nurse anesthetist. So I want to be a part of a surgical team. Yes. Yes, my advice. As cliche as it is, everyone has said it. Pick something you are so passionate about. This project did not feel like schoolwork up until right now. But I loved every part of it. Like I said, I learned so much about myself and the actual oncology field. So internship, community service, it was a breeze. And I would love to go back and continue to do even more. Yes.
The logo that you designed, are they going to utilize that next year's game?
I don't know. That's a good
You
question.
should make that happen.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You obviously kind of amped it up from what they've done in the past, and that makes it easier for another student building it.
Yes.
Especially with your
Yes, I've come to hate my design, truth be told. So I would love if somebody would kind of, like you said, take it on and maybe change it, like make it different each and every year, but still keep the same idea going. Because again, Orange County is small enough to where it's like, if I know somebody, somebody else probably knows them too. And so the people who are affected, it's all connected. And so I just feel like awareness is such an important thing in such a small community.
Take a break until 9:30 to get through OC block. So we'll come back at 9:30.
Number part of it, put it back in, right? Use that as a cheat sheet, right? That's a great cheat sheet. Just know it's not gonna be perfect, right? There's no such thing as perfection. Project wasn't perfect. Start to feel stressed. Can't roll with the sleeve. Take a deep breath. Calm your body down and just naturally. So slow your presentation down.
Yeah.
So we're not rushing through it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So forward and backwards.
Gotcha.
If you want to point, I don't have it on. That would be that's fine. Then you just do that.
Okay.
If you miss it, just go back. If you need to go, whatever. Like
Okay.
it doesn't matter, right?
Thank you.
And then here's this. Let me just let it go. Or close to your mouth.
Okay.
Just remember to breathe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's get it. Something hard.
Yes. I'm excited to share. Yeah.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Continuing on with my favorite Trokio. Trokio. Safety first, always. Safety first, safety always.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Katherine Trokio, and the title of my project is Safety First, Safety Always, The Importance of Personal Safety and Awareness. So I chose my project because of two realizations I had during my junior year. One was that when I started to tour college campuses, I noticed that not all of the blue light systems were working on their campus. And for those of you that don't know, blue light systems are safety systems on college campuses that help students in a case of an emergency. So on the system itself, there is a help button in the open part of the tower. And when you press that, it calls 911 or it calls campus security. And then as you are continuing to run away from danger and to get to a safe place, you continue to press these buttons and it tracks where you are so that help can get to you as fast as possible. But if these systems aren't up and working, then they cannot find you as quickly as possible. So I started to think about what would happen if I was on a college campus and this happened to me and all I had left was the tools on my own body to defend myself in a dangerous situation. Another realization I had was when I was doing an English paper on human trafficking.
And it really opened my eyes to how prevalent human trafficking is and how much of an issue it is in the United States and around the world. So with this, I decided to focus my research on what are the best methods to prevent a personal assault. And I found that the 3 most effective methods are to learn self-defense tactics, learn how to identify a threat, and to spread education about safety. Self-defense is important because it helps you prepare for the worst case scenario. And it's not about teaching you how to throw a punch or how to kick someone. It's about teaching you to build your inner confidence and teaching you how to use the tools on your body to your advantage so that in a dangerous situation, you're confident in yourself to get away. The next is to identify a threat. It's important to know how to identify a threat because it helps you to mitigate risks in a dangerous situation. And when you're able to identify risks, you automatically become a more aware individual. And the more aware you are, the safer you are. And in the interview I did with the SROs at our high school, I asked them my research question, and they said awareness is key. You have to keep your head on a swivel at all times. You need to know where you are, what you're doing, and who's going to be there. The final method I found was education. Spreading education about safety is vital to keeping people aware and keeping people safe. Education teaches people how to set their boundaries, and when you set your boundaries, you automatically learn and become more aware of what you're comfortable with. And when that happens, you automatically become a more aware individual and therefore a safer individual. So with this, I decided to do my professional learning experience with SAFE, which stands for Services to Abused Family Incorporated. It is located in Culpeper, Virginia. It is a domestic violence shelter. I served here on Tuesdays after school from September to December from around 3:15 after school to 5:15 when their office is closed. And I spent around 22 hours at SAFE. My mentor for at SAFE was Miss Jessica Reed, who is pictured to my right, and she's the community outreach coordinator. So with her, I kind of worked on putting together pamphlets and packets and informational things online for her to share with the community and bring to their community events. I also worked with Miss Jennifer Bowles, who's pictured to my left. She was in charge of youth outreach. So with her, I went to youth activities like Girls on the Run, which incorporates exercise with positive emotional outputs. So the girls would run a lap around the track, and then they would do an emotional exercise, and they would teach them how to properly emote and understand their feelings. So at SAFE, like I said, I did a lot of online work. So here, this is an image of me putting information into an online platform. For Miss Reed, we were putting together packets for them to send out to their donors. And then I also was putting together packets, which you can see in the background, for a volunteer opportunity they had that weekend. In addition to that, I did a lot of putting together these bags for the clients of the shelters. A lot of times when people leave domestic violence situations, they only have the clothes on their back and the things that they have in their hands. So we put together these bags. The pinks, the reds, the purple bags were for women. The blacks, the greens, and the blues were for men. And then they had little character-themed bags for the children. And so in the bags, you would find things like toothbrushes, toothpaste, soaps, deodorant, and feminine products, things that they would need on a daily basis that they wouldn't have on them. And so the biggest thing that I took from my personal learning experience was that I really got to see the connection between my research and then it being the education portion of my research being shown in the community. The more that I worked with Ms. Reed and saw how she spread SAFE's message through the community and how they talked about how they were here as a resource to help people, the more I got to see how that really affected the community. So with that, I decided to do 2 community service opportunities. One was self-defense classes. The drive for me kind of wanting to do this project was learning more about self-defense. So I knew I wanted to put on self-defense classes. So I did this with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. They were from 3 to 5 on a Sunday. They were on the 24th. They were also on the 3rd in November. They were located in our field house. This was my flyer that I sent out to the school, and it also came with a Google interest form for them to fill out. And so at the class there, I had a sign outside of the field house, and then inside I had a check-in table. There at the check-in table, I would cross off names of the attendees that came. I also would have snacks and waters for the attendees, and then I would direct them to the class. My mentor for this portion of my project was Miss Sarah Altman. Miss Sarah Altman works with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, and I got in contact with her through the SROs at our high school. I originally reached out to them, but they said they didn't have the qualifications to teach the class, so they put me into contact with Miss Sarah Altman. Miss Sarah Altman runs the program RAID with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, which is for rape aggression, but this class is only open for women. So I asked her, is there a possibility that we can make this class open for men and women because safety is important for everyone? So we worked together to put on a class, 2 classes at Orange County High School, open to everyone. And at the class, 2 deputies came each time, and they put on a presentation. The first part of the presentation was about awareness. So they told us about some basic awareness tips, what to do when you're out in public. And one of their suggestions was when you're walking to your car, you should always have your keys in your hand because you don't want to be digging around in your bag for your keys. And they can also be used if you needed them as a weapon. And then when you get in your car, the first thing that you should do is lock your doors. The first thing that you should always do when you get in your car is lock your doors. So they moved on to the next portion of the presentation, which was a hands-on portion. So they taught us some basic self-defense tactics. So in the left here, you can see they taught us some knee jabs. Then in the middle, they taught us how to break someone's nose by using a palm strike. And then to the right, they showed us how to do elbow strikes, which provide you more power in your strike than just throwing out your fist. They also taught us how to get out of grips. So if someone is grabbing you, whether it be with one hand or two hands, you always want to pull your arm towards their thumb. You want to pull your arm towards their thumb because it's the weakest point of their grip. And that will break their grip automatically. Instead of just trying to tug your arm away, you want to pull it towards their thumb so that you can get away as quickly as possible. In addition to the self-defense classes I put on a What to Wear Wednesday at the high school. This was on October 2nd, and it was in support of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This was the flyer I sent to the SCA. And the color for domestic violence is purple, and the symbol for it is a purple ribbon, which is why I brought you guys the purple ribbons today. And so this was the flyer I sent to the SCA, and that morning on the announcements, I had a little speech prepared for them to talk about the history of domestic violence and the importance of it and why we were supporting it for October. So later that day, I went around and took pictures of all of the students that participated in the Wear Purple Day. This is an image of my governor's school class who participated in it. Thank you all. And then this was an image of all the teachers at the high school that participated in the Wear Purple Day. My mentor for this portion of my project was Miss Jamerson. She is in charge of the SCA, and she helped me plan this event, pick the date, and then advertise for the event. Oops, sorry. And so the biggest thing that I took away in my impact for my community service is that now all of these kids that attended my classes and heard about and became more aware are now safer individuals going out into the world. Whether they're going off to college, they're going out into the workforce, or they're just going out into society, they all know some basic tips to stay safe and to help them if they ever need it in a dangerous situation. The biggest thing that I took from my community service was that I learned how much I cared about safety. Going into this project, I knew I had an interest, but it really opened my eyes to how much I care about safety and how much I wanted to learn about it. And then also I learned that how to put on an event. I had never solely put on an event by myself before, and to see the results, it was really cool, and it was really a rewarding experience. My future advice for governor's school seniors is to start as early as you possibly can. I reached out to my professional learning experience over the summer. They didn't respond until right before school started, and I couldn't start until September. So my suggestion is to start as early as possible so that you can do what you want to do without any time constraints. My future plans are to attend James Madison University in the fall to study nursing. I would like to be a travel nurse to help as many people as I possibly can. And I would like to thank Ms. Carlton and Ms. Herndon for all of their help throughout this project. I would also like to thank BRVGS administration for a wonderful 4 years. I'd also like to thank the judges for being here today and for all of my classmates for sitting here. And I really would like to thank all of my advisors throughout this project because without them, it really would not have been possible. So thank you. That concludes my presentation. Any questions? Yes.
When you opened up for unisex class, did you find that you did have people men and females, or was it still female heavy?
It was very female heavy. I actually only had one guy attend both of my classes. I would assume most of the reason behind it is that women want to learn more about safety, and it is, I would say, in some ways, I think women do think about it more in some manners, but it was a majority women class. There was only one guy that attended. Yeah, the biggest way I would say is to contact your local sheriff's department. I started with them, and that's where I learned about the RAID program that they put on. And then they actually had said that they had never put on an organization like this, but they were trying to start one. So she said that doing this with me and starting it really encouraged them to start doing this for the community so that hopefully they'll have future ones coming. I would hope so, yes. They said that they were looking into doing that. Yes. Yes.
If someone came up to you and said that they had pepper spray and that was really
I would tell them that it's important to take a self-defense class because in a dangerous situation, yes, pepper spray can be helpful, but your attacker can get a hold of that and use it against you. So it does become a weapon against you. It doesn't, yes, it serves to help you, but it more can become a dangerous situation. Sorry.
You remember something? And the sheet is right up there. So just look at it and start talking about whatever's up there. That's the biggest thing. So forward and backwards. Skip it or use other directions. If you want to use this, you can do that. It's up to you. Okay. It's on. You can bump that. It'll go on standby. Just push it. It's terrifying.
Next is Katherine Slegel, helping the homeless, addressing a global issue in small towns.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katherine Slegel, and for my senior capstone project, I decided to tackle the issue of homelessness in Orange County. So the reason I chose this topic for my project goes back to 6th grade. I was driving through Baltimore, Maryland, and I saw a man on the side of the road picking through a trash can in order to get food. And I had a bag of chips with me in the car, and I asked my mom if we could pull over on the side of the road and I could give it to him, and she said no because you can't trust those people. And that was the first time that my eyes really opened to the stigmas against homeless people and that people simply don't want to help them because of the negative connotations against them. And so ever since then, I wanted to make a change against that. I have donated to homeless shelters, I've helped out at community dinners for them, and going into this project, I found out that Orange actually used to have a homeless shelter, but it was taken down about a decade ago because the public had so much pushback. They didn't like that it was so close to other businesses and just the going-ons of Orange. And so I wanted to figure out why that was. So for my research question, it was what are the best ways to solve homelessness in a rural community? And I found that more access to mental health resources, the housing first model, and more affordable housing were those solutions. I found through research that almost everyone or a ton of people that are homeless deal with severe mental health illnesses and disabilities, so they are not able to maintain a job or a house or those relationships with their friends and family to keep them in a house, so they end up homeless. And then once they are homeless, they can't access mental health resources that they need to get back into society. So if we offer those resources, they can become productive members of society again. The second is the housing first model, which is an idea that you put a homeless person into a house and then offer them mental health resources, substance abuse, rehabilitation, or anything else that they need. And many people think that this is counteractive because they want to essentially fix their problems and then put them into a house. But this idea is that you give them the stability of a home and then give them those resources that they need to get back into society. And finally, more affordable housing. When someone comes out of homelessness and they have a low paying level job, they can't afford many of the houses on the market today. So we need to build and offer more affordable housing so that they can come out of homelessness and not go back into it. For my professional learning experience, I did it at the Thurman Brisbane Center in Fredericksburg in September for a total of 12 hours with my mentor, Mr. Dave Cooper, who is the CEO. Because this was a homeless shelter, I was not able to take really any pictures because I could not disclose any information about any of the residents. This is the only picture I was able to get. But I mainly stayed behind the control desk, which is basically the heart of the entire facility. They take calls, they bring donations in, they bring people in, they offer resources to everyone. They kind of just make the facility run smoothly. But some things that I did other than that, I performed a room sweep of the female dorms to make sure that everything was clean and as it should be. I also decorated the common area to make the area just feel more at home for all the residents living there. I also conducted 2 interviews with both case managers and really learned how a homeless shelter operates and the main causes of why people become homeless. And in this picture, this was my favorite activity. I organized a coloring event for the younger kids that live there so that their parents could go into a money financing meeting. And so I had them draw pumpkins because it was getting kind of towards Halloween. And this was my favorite because I was able to connect with the kids and they were able to connect with me. So going out of my professional learning experience, I wanted to bring those resources that I learned into Orange, but I knew that building a building and getting the staff to make a shelter would be nearly impossible for a high school student. But I got in contact with the pastor of the Orange Church the Nazarene, Miss Pam Edelman, and her idea was that she was opening the doors of her church to offer laundry resources, shower resources, and resources to neighboring counties that had overnight shelters. And so I partnered with her to establish the Orange Exchange Day Shelter. And I did this from early September to mid-November for a total of 21 hours. One of the first things I did was to paint the common area. So if someone were to come in and get these resources, this is where they would mostly be. And so I just painted it just so they would feel more welcomed and at home and at ease. I also helped organize this room. This is called the Exchange Closet, and people from the church or the community can donate any goods that they don't need anymore so that people that do need them can get them. For instance, if someone comes out of homelessness and into a home and they don't have the money to afford kitchenware, they can come here and pick it up. And there were things from children's toys to clothing to shower products to really anything you can think of was in this room, so I helped organize that. And the main part of my community service was this clothing drive. I knew going into this project that I definitely wanted to organize one. And so my idea was that people could donate clothing and then people that needed it, like homeless people or low-income people, could get them free of charge. And so I operated this over a 3-day span. And I had tables set up for adults, so men and women, and then I also had tables set up for kids and then newborns. And overall, I got over 10 donations and then helped over 20 individuals and families. Obviously, the biggest impact was that these people they got the clothes that they could not have afforded otherwise. I wanted to do it when it was starting to get cold so that they would have the winter clothes that they needed to get past this really cold winter we just had. But the biggest thing that struck me was that most of the people that I saw and connected with just came out of domestic abuse situations or had really little children, so they were very vulnerable. So that was, I think, my biggest impact was that I was able to help them. And then any of the clothes that were left over were donated to local clothing closets so that they could continue to help people. These were the Love Outreach Clothing Closet and Good Samaritan in Orange. And it is really cool because the Orange Exchange Day Shelter still puts on these clothing drives. the pastor, Miss Pam Edelman, came up to me a few months ago and she said that she was putting on one herself, and she said, if Kate can do it, I can do it. And that just made me really happy to hear that a small idea I had going into this project would continue on even after I was like in college. And the thing I learned most about myself was that I really like helping people and putting on these events. I had never considered social work at all before this project, and I definitely did start to consider it. Going into like a profession or even just doing community service in my future. I would definitely like to put on more events like these and help out with events like these and just continue on. My biggest advice to freshmen or anyone coming into this project would be to do something that they're passionate about. I feel like everyone kind of mentioned that, but definitely do something you're passionate about because it helps you stay motivated and want to research more and just kind of help out for a cause that you're fighting for. And then also to use your resources. The people that I ended up working with, I got in contact with them through many different people before then. And so definitely use your resources and you connect with people and just ask the question of, do you know how I can do this? And then they can connect you with other people in that field. My future plans, this fall I plan to attend Virginia Tech to study wildlife conservation so I can work in our national parks or state parks or in our waterways as a biologist. And I want to say thank you to Ms. Carlton and Ms. Herndon for helping me throughout this project, answering all my questions that I have. I also want to thank my classmates for making Governor School so fun, especially this year. I want to thank the judges for coming out today and helping us, and all the other guests for being here. And I especially want to say thank you to my mentors, Mr. Dave Cooper and Ms. Pam Edelman, for helping me throughout this project. Any questions? Yes.
I just happen to be in Oregon. At what they are charging.
Mm-hmm.
Like $8 for a year. I thought was hard to believe. So I think what you were doing, how did they get the word out to the community so that people know to donate there? I feel like mine, I'd rather have it go there
Mm-hmm.
than to Goodwill where there's private people.
Yeah. So the church itself with the exchange room, that was the first thing, and they just kind of did it word of mouth. Miss Pam Edelman, she said that people just started like donating stuff to her one day, and then it just kind of piled up. And so word of mouth of just saying like, you can donate to this church, like the members of the church can say that. But for my project, the clothing drive, I made a flyer and I posted it to social media so that everyone could know. And it was actually really cool because my neighbor ended up donating like really big boxes to it. And they said that places in Orange, like the churches in Orange, actually helped them once they moved because they couldn't afford it. And so they liked that they were able to give back to us in the exact same way that they were helped.
With the closing of the sheltering arms,
Mm-hmm.
did you come upon any data of how many?
So it's very difficult to get that data. I was not able to because there's so many undocumented people. I found that while you see the people on the streets every day, there are also so many people that live in the woods in tents, and so that like they're not in society for you to see them, so it's really hard to get that data because they're just undocumented. I definitely think doing drives or things like I did definitely helps with that because it helps people like interact with these people or fight for a cause for something, and then they can see that these people are people just like us. And that was like the main thing that I wanted to do, was provide love for those people, but also make people see that they're people just like us. They're just in an unfortunate situation. Yes.
So when you see a homeless person, what do you do? Like, how do you react to them?
I try to offer them resources. Obviously in Orange we don't have anything, but I try to look up places like in surrounding counties. I know Warrenton has a few, or like anywhere close nearby that has places, and I can offer them those resources. Or if I have anything with me like food or anything that I can give them, I also give them that. Yes.
So you started the exchange with the church. Is there any way that you're still involved with other organizations, help support them, things like that?
So I am still involved. I'm one of the active volunteers. So some people that hear about the exchange day shelter, they'll come up to the pastor and be like, hey, I need help. I need to get into a shelter. I need these resources. And then I have helped either drive them or find them resources nearby that are accessible to them, or give them stuff out of the exchange room so that they can be helped. So I do continue to do that. It is really difficult because like I don't know, the stigmas in Orange are very hard, because when I talked to people about this at the beginning of my project, they were like, oh, we don't have homeless people here. And we actually do. There's a lot of them. People just don't realize it. And so getting that word out is really necessary. So it's hard to have people like help the exchange shelter. It's based on like donations and community effort and outreach.
Personally, I've been able to experience
I think the closest would be Baltimore, Maryland. I was driving through, it was like, I watched like a Broadway musical or something, and I was driving through at night, and there was just people lining the streets, like sleeping on benches, and that was like the first time I was like, wow, like this is a really big issue, and I was like 10 or 11. Skip a slide. Back, whatever. It's not a big deal. Just go back. Okay. Just say might be used. Is it on right now?
Wartas is going to talk about teaching the voters of tomorrow, election education in
Good morning. My name is Antonia Wartas, and my governor's school project is titled Teaching the Voters of Tomorrow, Election Education in Schools. From a very young age, I was surrounded by the world of politics. Regardless of the challenges my family faced, my father made sure to be civically active in every election by voting and volunteering to be an election observer. This picture here is one that he posted this past election, showing how proud he is to serve his community and encouraging others to do the same. Recently, there has been a decrease in voter turnout from newly eligible citizens, and I believe that this is directly related to a lack of quality civic education given to them at a young age. It is my goal with this project to inform the younger citizens of Orange County on the electoral process and help them feel more comfortable with the concept of voting and being civically active.
After a great amount of consideration, my research question was established as what are the best methods to educate students on the electoral process? My research showed that mock elections, education on current events, and hands-on learning were the most effective in fostering relative consciousness surrounding politics in students. Mock elections show the process in a fun and engaging way, while education on current events informs them of the political climate they will be entering soon. Finally, hands-on learning promotes advocacy, civic engagement, and collaboration with peers. It was my goal with this project to implement some of these practices into the younger members of Orange County, and I did so through great research and through the databases provided to me by the University of Virginia and Orange County High School. I was also able to interview 2 experts in the field of elections, Fredericksburg General Registrar Ms. Jessica B. Atkinson and former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger. Both individuals agreed that there is lots of improvement to be made in the field of civic education, and that firsthand experiences of the process, like observing one's parents vote or watching people go into voting precincts, are most effective in helping them feel more comfortable in participating in elections. My professional learning experience took place at the Fredericksburg Office of Voter Registration and Elections under the supervision of Ms. Cecilia Howell. Ms. Howell is one of the deputy registrars there, and she is the community outreach director. Furthermore, her job mainly consists of creating posters and pamphlets to inform the people of Fredericksburg on the different election opportunities and voting opportunities they are able to take. My internship was spread over the span of 3 months, with my first day being on September 16th and my last on November 4th. I spent a total of 22 hours and 30 minutes assisting the office with various projects. My first 3 days of internship took place at the Wallace Library in downtown Fredericksburg, where I observed Ms. Howell run a voter registration booth. She asked each individual who passed by if they were registered to vote and if they knew their voting location. When met with unregistered voters, she either handed them a voter registration application or directed them to one of her posters, which had the QR code to the voter registration website. Her booth also displayed the documents shown here: a sample ballot, a pamphlet discussing the proposed constitutional amendment, and instructions on how to turn in the physical copy of the voter registration application. Observing the function of this booth allowed me to interact with many different individuals, learn about different voting processes, and then also understand how effective posters and pamphlets are in informing the public. My 4th internship day took place at the actual office in downtown Fredericksburg, in which I was able to observe curbside voting and same-day registration. When observing curbside voting, I accompanied another deputy registrar named Miss Rosemary Chandler as she handed an older couple their ballots. In doing so, I was able to understand the importance of accessibility options for all voters, because no one should be limited by their conditions and they should all be able to participate in elections. In addition to that, I was able to put together 144 Halloween favors for the downtown Fredericksburg Halloween Festival. These favors included a couple of small toys, candy, and an office sticker. Ms. Howell explained that children receive these bags while their parents' registration status is checked, and that there was a large turnout to this event, which allowed them to register many people to vote. My 5th internship day also took place in office, where I put together 96 badges for the election officers and observers at each precinct. In addition to the badges, I put together envelopes for provisional voting ballots, and Ms. Howell explained that these are ballots in which the voter's registration status or qualifications are at question, and this allows them to still vote, and if their vote has the opportunity or the chance to change the results of the election, it's considered 3 days after Election Day. This day informed me of not only another aspect of voting, but it also allowed me to feel more appreciation towards the volunteers and registrars that make the election as smooth as it is. On my final day, it took place on the day before Election Day, and so I helped with the organization of materials to be sent out to each precinct. This picture shows the 5 boxes of ballots to be sent to the 5 precincts in Fredericksburg, in which I helped take inventory of. Overall, my internship rewarded me with information regarding the electoral process that I can use for the rest of my life and in my community service experience. My community service experience took place at the Boys and Girls Club of Orange County under the supervision of Miss Sam Triplett, the teen coordinator. My collaboration with this organization was established on September 26th after a meeting with Mr. Miller and Miss Triplett. This experience was 3 days long, and it started on Monday, November 11th, and ended on Wednesday, November 13th. I spent a total of 11 hours preparing for and working with the students of the Boys and Girls Club to provide them with the most effective experience. On my first day of community service, I presented a slideshow on the aspects of a strong campaign. Students then established the topic of the election to be on which sport is the best, and then I handed them a worksheet I created to help them outline their campaign posters. With that, 4 candidates were created: football, blue, soccer, and basketball. The campaign posters they created are here, all consisting of strong slogans, coordinated campaign colors, and logos. On the second community service day, I discussed a simplified version of the electoral process. That way, we didn't have to get into the deep logistics, and they were able to just become comfortable with a simplified version. And so I had each student register to vote on a worksheet I created, and then the candidates that had more than one member of support nominated a candidate representative, while the other students just became members of the party. And so I discussed the concepts of campaigning and canvassing before elections, so the students created campaign posters in support of their desired candidate. While they were doing that, the candidate representatives created stickers to hand to all the staff members in the Boys and Girls Club and ask for their support on election day. While wrapping up for the day, I discussed the possibility to be civically active in ways besides voting, including being an election observer and or an officer, and encouraged them to think about that before the election. My final day at the Boys and Girls Club, first I had 2 students volunteer to be election officers and 1 to be an observer. These students voted early, while the candidates wrote and presented speeches on why people should vote for them. 1 officer went and handed the staff members their ballots, while I assisted the other in checking the registration status of each student and handing out the ballots. After counting up all of the votes, I discussed the power of their voices and how, while their speeches were on what sport is the best, they have the power to influence their community and speak upon larger things that relate more to them. I then announced the winner of the election to be basketball and gave all the participants some treats. While wrapping up for the day, I gave them each a survey to fill out regarding how effective this experience was. My legacy lives in these children, as 78% stated that after participating in this experience, they felt more likely to participate in elections. 1 student even wrote, "Yes, because 1 vote can make a difference," in response to one of the questions on the survey. This project rewarded me with a great amount of information to bring to all aspects of my life. Through personal research and internship, I was able to establish and observe the process of election education in both students and adults as they were registering to vote. And through my community service, I was able to test one aspect of my research by running a mock election in the Boys and Girls Club. If I were to do one thing differently in my community or in my internship and community service, I would change the amount of opportunities I sought out in the beginning. When emailing potential supervisors and mentors, I would email one place at a time and wait for their response before emailing other organizations. And I would advise future Governor School seniors to email more than one location at a time. That way you're able to confirm both aspects of your project sooner and get on top of your work early on in the semester. After high school, I plan to attend a Virginia college to pursue political science. I hope to attain my bachelor's degree in political science and eventually a master's in public policy. My intended career path is one focused on policy analysis with the desire to propose policies that equally represent minorities and other marginalized groups. I would like to
a new one because it's not on. I'll be right back. It's green. We're just gonna put it right here. Just remember that this is your story. You want to add it? Right? It'll be beautiful, but it won't be oxygen down. This is forward, looking backwards, and then this is if you want to sunshine. Okay? If you go too far, just go backwards. If you go one direction, just go the other direction. It's not a big deal. Okay? And then this is just close so we can. Okay. Only time I tell students brag. A little hard for you. Okay. But it's celebration of all your hard work that you've done. Okay. Yes, I love that. Sometimes they yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. Makes it really interesting. Yeah. I've completed it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You've been enjoying watching your classmates? Helps a little bit. Yeah. All experiencing the same thing. And they go up there and they do an amazing job. It's just like you're going to do. Make sure you keep building anytime you need it. Okay? And then I'll introduce you.
This is Ananda Brown, diversity and equity for students of color, achieving equality in
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ananda Brown, and my project is titled Diversity and Equity for Students of Color, Achieving Equality in Education. Before I officially start my project, I kind of want to give a little spill on some of the things I do in and outside of school. As you know, I'm a senior in the Blue Ridge, Virginia Governor School Program. I am a member of the National Honor Society. I'm the Vice President of Leadership in our school's DECA chapter and the President of our school's African American Club. I also have various community service endeavors in and outside of school. I have a part-time job. And some of you would hear these things and think, she's a good girl. She's got her head on straight. She does good in school. But unfortunately, that is not enough for someone who looks like me. When I was first introduced to this project my freshman year, I automatically knew I wanted it to be about helping students of color achieve equality in education. I didn't like having to question why I was the only or one of the only students of color in my AP, DE, or honors classes, having to question, do students of color really take their education seriously, or are we just being denied opportunities? And very quickly, I realized it was not a personal issue, but an institutionalized issue that school systems all over America have dealt with for a very long time. That led me to my research question: what are the best ways to incorporate diversity and equity into grade school education? Through my research, I came up with 3 solutions, the first being incorporating diversity training and content into staff development, the second being hiring a racially diverse staff, and the third being implementing policies and procedures that address racism and discrimination head on. Next, I have my internship, my professional learning experience. I was fortunate enough to work with Dr. Joshua Epps at the University of Virginia. He is the project manager for their Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and he is also the creator of the MOCA and WOCA programs, otherwise known as the Men and Women of Color, Honor, and Ambition. Dr. Epps really pushed me during our time together. I started it on September 3rd and ended it on October 3rd. He really overall made me do a lot of the research for my research paper early, which of course at the time I had the why do I have to do this now attitude. My classmates don't have to do it yet, but it really helped in the long run. He made me dive into my sources early. He taught me about theoretical frameworks and how I can use them to get my point across. And overall, he helped me create a base plan for the mentorship program that I did for my community service at the Boys and Girls Club, the Inclusive Kids program. With Inclusive Kids, I aim to teach young students in the Orange County Public School System about diversity, equity, inclusion, about what each word means, why it's important, and why we need it. I was lucky enough to do it at the Boys and Girls Club. I worked with the 4th and 5th graders at the club, and I took a number of student mentors from the high school with me over there. And from late November to early December, we worked with them, we did different activities with them, fun activities, but I also made it a point to have serious conversations with them as well. Why do we need diversity? What is racism? What is discrimination? What is being non-inclusive? And here I have a few pictures to show you guys of my community service. The first one being the very first activity that we did was the diversity hand mural. I wanted to do something kind of lighthearted to get them introduced to diversity. So what we did was everyone did hand paint on a piece of paper that said diversity, and I had them write their names as well as 3 positive adjectives about themselves. And what really helped me, because I'm sure all of my other BRVGS classmates who went to the Boys and Girls Club can attest that it was very nerve-wracking going in there on the first day. They have very lively kids. They love to speak their minds. And so I had them write their names as well as 3 positive adjectives about themselves. And what really helped me was that what showed me that they knew what diversity was, instead of knowing the exact definition, was when they were done with their own part, they started to write positive adjectives about their friends under their names. And it showed me that while they didn't really understand when I said, what is diversity? And they said, oh, we don't know what it is. It showed me that they knew how to implement it without knowing what it actually was. Here's some other pictures of us working around the diversity hand mural. All of the kids, I was really excited to see that they were all like excited as well to get to know me and to learn more of what I wanted to teach them about. The next activity is one of the last activities that we did, and I'm pretty sure it was their favorite activity, was the sugar cookie flags. So I was able to make sugar cookies from scratch with the other student mentors from the high school. We got there a little earlier than usual, and we had various countries from around the world, and we were saying we were going to teach them about these countries, and they could pick one and mimic the flag onto a sugar cookie. And so I picked countries like Mexico, the Dominican Republic, China, France, Greece, Ethiopia, Nigeria, countries from all around the world with different cultures, and to show them how these people interact on a daily basis and how we as the United States of America, how diversity correlates between the different countries. And while I do think their intake was more of the sugar cookies than the information, it was a really fun activity. We got to do it twice. Oh, let me go back a little bit. So with this project, I think the one thing I learned about myself was that I'm very slow thinking with certain things. I like to make sure everything's perfect. And sometimes that can hold you back a little bit. And I really appreciated how my BRVGS classmates, as well as my advisors, kind of, even when I fell behind sometimes, they worked with me, they listened to me. For my legacy for this project, I think it's mainly within my community service program. Um, After I finished the program, I thought, okay, I'm done. I can relax until we have to do this presentation. But what really kind of filled my heart up a little bit about it was when I saw the kids out in the community. I found out some of them lived in my neighborhood. I saw them at the grocery store, and them coming up to me and saying, hi, we miss you at the Boys and Girls Club. We remember what you did with us. And their parents asking me questions. It just showed me that I was doing what I was supposed to do and that I picked the right topic, something that I was passionate about. Another thing that sparked to me was when I came back to school and teachers because I never announced the program publicly, some teachers already knew about the program, and them telling me that they were proud of me and they were glad that I took this initiative. It really helped me calm my nerves even after all the stress was over and done. Next, I have my future plans. In the fall, I intend to attend Hampton University, class of 2029. I will be studying nursing. Nursing doesn't really have anything to do with this project, but I have a lot of experience in the medical field as a patient, and so my own personal experiences drew me to that. As a thank you, I want to thank again my class of 2025 Blue Ridge, Virginia Government School students for sticking with me through this project. We all were stressing a lot. It was nice to know that we weren't alone. My advisors, Ms. Herndon and Ms. Carlton, thank you guys so much for your help. All of BRVGS, I would like to thank my family. They're here today for listening and listening and listening to everything that I had to say about this project, as well as the judges for being here today. And yes, does anybody have any questions? Yes, so my advice to future Blue Ridge students, specifically for my juniors, start as early as possible. You have the option to do your internship in the summer. I would recommend that you do it in the summer. It got very difficult along the way, juggling both my internship and my community service at the same time as being a senior. Right now you probably think, senior, you only have a few classes, you're getting ready to go to college, but it's a lot more stressful than that. For my sophomores and freshmen, I would definitely say start thinking about what you want your project to be about. As everybody else said before, pick something that you're passionate about. It sounds cliche, but it'll help you in the long run, and it'll make doing this project so much easier. Yes. Yes.
It sounds like you made a really great program for the inclusive Kickstarter for Boys and Girls Club. Is that something that they're now going to absorb and adopt and continue these activities we've created with the future kids of Boys and Girls Club working with them?
So actually, I'm definitely hoping to do that, to keep talking with them. My mentor from my professional learning experience, when we were forming the program, he told me that he thought it was a really good idea and that hopefully one day I could partner with the Boys and Girls Club and create it like its own nonprofit program. But I would definitely love to start here in Orange County first and then expand it. Yes.
One of the different reasons of combating that, or I'm sure your three main reasons, was a racially diverse staff. How do you feel going through a school system that is, or at least here at the high school, is predominantly Caucasian?
That's a very good question. So I definitely think I've gotten support from all of my teachers, calling out a few names, having a Miss Kimberly Crow or a Miss Herndon or a Miss Carlton. They have pushed me so much and helped me so much, but it was very important for me to see a Miss Patri Day Owens, to see a Miss Donnie Brooks and a Kyra Washington and a Dr. Batten and a Pam Washington, to know that these are ladies that are in positions and fields that they love, and because they look like me, I know that I can do it. And going into research, studies show that students of color are more likely to excel when they see mentors and adults who look like them excelling in certain fields.
There was struggles. It was
I would love to say that I was just like, I'll get it together, it'll be fine. I was definitely stressed out. But in the long run, as time went on, I started to realize that how important this project really was to me. And I think when I start thinking about, who I'm doing this project for, it's not just for me, like the Inclusive Kids program, it's going to help other people in the long run and keep teaching kids about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I think just thinking about the people that I'm going to help in the long run helped me realize, like, okay, we got to get it together. I'm going to be finished with this as of May of 2025, but other people are going to benefit from it in the future.
Oh no, I just thought it was so cute. That works for me. I can.
Is that okay, Wendy?
Yeah, all good. Yeah. Can I go walk outside?
You gotta be pretty good at that. You've done a good job. Just watch that cord.
No, just make it up. Yeah, no, we just gotta get it rolling.
Yeah. Once you get up there, it's just all good.
Yeah.
Okay, you good with this?
Yes, ma'am.
You good with this?
Thank you. Thank you.
You are.
Thank you so much. I got it.
I never read quite right. Like, I'm always like, are they ready?
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, yeah.
And then I leave them like, okay, they're not actually ready yet.
That's me when I'm like waiting tables. I always feel like I'm stalking them because I'm like, are you guys still eating? Or like,
I'm here.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
no,
like,
you don't want me
just letting you guys know. I'm not trying to like. Yeah. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Atkinson, and today I'm going to be talking about my capstone project centered around reducing burnout in overachieving students. So I was originally inspired to choose this as my topic because I had noticed that there was a severe lack of awareness surrounding academic burnout in the school setting. So that ended up resulting in this almost silent suffering of myself and my peers, in which we had become unmotivated and unenthused towards school. I'm sure we're all familiar with the story of waiting until the last minute to cram for an exam, a test, or paper, or even just feeling very fearful and anxious whenever we're questioned about the future, college plans, anything like that. So I really wanted it to become my goal to try to help alleviate this problem and also help myself and my peers take control of our education. So before I offer up my research question, I would like to give you guys a definition of academic burnout so that way we all have a clear common ground to build upon. So academic burnout can best be defined as persistent stress resulting from emotional exhaustion, overwhelm, and a lack of resources. So with that, my research question was, what are the best ways to reduce academic burnout in overachieving students? And from that, I found 3 solutions. The first one being implementing mindfulness and emotional intelligence into the education system, building community support, and the third one was promoting resilience and grit into students. So for my internship, I interned under Dr. Patricia Jennings. She is a researcher and educator at UVA who specializes in social and emotional learning. Her most notable, I guess, achievement or project at the moment is CARE, that stands for Cultivating Awareness and Resilience in Education. And basically, throughout my internship, I would mostly attend Google Meets, virtual meetings pertaining to CARE, but most specifically these sub-projects of CARE, which were implementation projects and a scaling project to assess its efficacy in the school system. I did also attend a seminar at Morven Farms in UVA in the fall. This was September, I believe. And this was in which Dr. Jennings basically talked about implementing mindfulness into the education system and talking about leadership in education. So this was my original community service idea. My community service mentors were Mr. Crystal, Miss Lore, she is in the middle. Basically, they would be the ones that I would go through and detail all my plans with. And yeah, so my original plan for the club was to create a student support group here at OC to help students become aware of academic burnout and essentially help them process and overcome it so that way they can really succeed in their education and their academic careers. However, there were a few obstacles that got in the way, mostly being the time of the year, the fact that we weren't allowed to have clubs at the beginning of the year. And then by the time we could actually do this, there are a few more obstacles that got in the way. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do it this year. However, Ms. Schumann, all the way on the other side, she has agreed to basically take on the plans. And we are currently thinking of selecting an upcoming junior or some other underclassmen to take on this for next year for other students. So instead of that, I was given this wonderful opportunity by Ms. Bunovich and the co-leaders of Governor School Guides, Antonia and Faith, to partake in their monthly emails and their wellness conferences. And essentially, what I did was take the plans for my club and almost just do it for Governor School in these conferences. So I would offer informationals about, this one was self-care. This was the most recent wellness conference. So I gave tips and information about self-care and how you can use that to reduce burnout. This was the first one I did in October. this is where I gave tips for studying and reducing burnout, how you can use studying techniques to further implement those learning strategies into yourself, if that makes sense. And then, so this was the behind the scenes of that. So this is where we would plan everything. We mostly communicated with Ms. Bunovich over Gmail and Google Meet. However, there were a few in-person conversations leading up to the actual presentation days. Yeah, so this was really interesting for me because I really enjoyed essentially viewing my problems from a third-person perspective, and seeing it more analytical helped me, I guess, pull myself out of this situation and see it as a more rounded subject rather than something that I was almost drowning in, if that makes sense, because I'm sure we can all relate to that feeling. For my future plans, I intend to go to Germana to finish off my associate's degree for my first year. Then I would go to JMU, get my bachelor's in nursing, and become a travel nurse / hospitalist, because this project has showed me that I really need a strong work-life balance, and I feel like I really thrive in something that is very on and then off, and so a hospitalist career would give me that kind of thing. So yeah. And then again, I really enjoyed this because it just gave me a really strong chance to help my peers, and yeah, excuse me. So for my legacy, that would be the club next year with Miss Schumann and then the upcoming senior. And then any advice that I would give is to, okay, for any upcoming senior, you are doing this because you have shown that you are capable of doing this and that you know that you're doing this. So I would really advise you to sit in that and own the fact that you know what you're doing. A lot of the times throughout my internship, I would get very nervous that I wasn't either sounding professional enough or I sounded too professional and I didn't sound personal enough. But at the end of the day, communication is what matters most. And I feel like I would have succeeded more if I had just owned the fact that like Dr. Jennings accepted this because she wanted to work with me as much as I wanted to work with her. So yeah, that concludes my presentation. And I'm open for questions. Donnie? Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. So I would like to say thank you to, number one, all of my supervisors, Mr. Crystal, Miss Lore, Dr. Jennings. I would also like to say thank you to Ms. Bunovich, specifically Antonia and Faith from Governor School Guides as well, but also all of my other peers for making this such an enjoyable experience. And then I would like to thank my advisors, Ms. Herndon and Ms. Carlton, for just being such a really big help throughout this process.
Can you explain a little bit more about your internship with Dr. Jennings?
Right. So for my internship with Dr. Jennings, in the video meetings, they were mostly staff meetings pertaining to the projects. So they would mostly go over data that they've collected for over the week. They had a lot of interactive newspapers that they would send out to various schools. So they would collect the data on the interaction on that. They also discussed recruitment for various elementary schools to begin implementing CARE. And then they also discussed meetings that they went over and just general schedules.
So was that was just through UVA, or was that specific to UVA students? Sounds like it's more elementary, like a full.
Yes, ma'am. So the research was mostly just through UVA.
Got it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
How do you think your conferences with the Governor School students impacted them in a positive way? See, like, your strategies you gave them implemented in any way for your classmates or peers?
Yes. So throughout the conferences, the activities that we would facilitate, one of my favorite ones that we did was this gratitude exercise in which that we would ask the students to just talk about things that would make them happy, while another student would just quietly sit there and listen. And once the timer was up, they would switch. And then after doing so, you could almost feel the mood in the room just lift. And so that was really interesting to view. And then, yeah. Yes.
So I love that you were persistent and planned something out. It didn't work. How hard was that to
So the pivot was, I would like to say that it was hard, but it was hard and easy at the same time. It was hard because I had wanted to do this one specific thing, and it was very hard for me to change my rigid thinking. However, it was also in the sense, like, after I had sat myself down, it was like my goal was to help students, and I'm still achieving my goal. I'm just achieving it in a different way. And if I really thought about it, it wasn't really in a way that was all that different. So I think once I understood that my goal, my overlying goal was still being achieved, then it really wasn't as hard as I thought it would have been.
Come out with a picture of what you want, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's probably really good for peers to hear. You have an idea of what you want. It doesn't always turn out
Right.
that way, but when you can open up to the idea of, oh, well, it could look differently.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yes, Ms. Allen.
So Ms. Bunovich has put a lot of effort in the past couple of years of really bringing mental health and student well-being to the forefront of the Governor's School. What else do you think the Governor's School teachers and the staff could be doing to help support students? What do you see as areas of need for you and the other students?
So from personal experience, I can say that I have felt the most supported and welcomed in a space where teachers set clear expectations, but are still willing to collaborate if those expectations for some reason cannot be met. And that's obviously, there's nuances to that statement. However, for example, I had one of my interviews I had with Miss Lore. She told me that the most effective teachers are the ones that promote students while also making sure that, like, giving them tough love, essentially, that it's a good thing to be like, hey, like, I can help you guys, but also at the same time, at the end of the day, what needs to be done, if that makes sense. Yes.
I'm sorry, one more. In your main, I guess, thesis or whichever overall, excuse me, burnout and overachieving students. Overachieving is necessary, or do you think it's all students?
That is a really good question. So originally, I was gonna have it as just students in general. However, I narrowed it down for the sake of research. But yes, the reason I chose overachieving students was essentially just, in my eyes, obviously I'm speaking from a biased perspective, but there seems to be a heavier pressure and expectation from yourselves, your family, your peers, your teachers, everyone, to consistently produce and yield positive or acceptable results, but without seemingly struggling. And then from that, it seemed to become a comparison of who was struggling the most to see who is the most successful. And at the end of the day, that's not what that is. Yeah, absolutely.
Looks so nice. I love it. Alright, so remember, this is your story. So if you forget something, skip it.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. If you ask,
Yeah, I know. These are getting hot to be highlighted.
something, add it in. Okay? Beautiful story. Or sharing that. This is your way. This is amazing for us, right? It's an amazing journey with you. So share that passion.
All right.
And then most important for you, actually got off, right? Instead of just knowing, I keep thinking what to say, when I start to get that nervous feeling, take a deep breath. Just for that moment, it's yours, and then it'll help your brain have a little extra oxygen, and it will actually make your body calm down. It just happens naturally. So take that as often as you need. And it helps kind of like slow down your presentation.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go really
Yeah,
hard.
I know.
And so that can help us kind of slow down a little bit.
All right. Well, this is high tech. Fancy.
We're trying. Forward and backwards.
Yeah.
So, and if you go mix it up or you go too fast, just go back. It's not a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
And then if you want to use the pointer, it's
Ooh.
the sunshine.
All right.
But you don't have to. It's
That's
up to
cool.
You. Yeah. Just kind of hold it kind of close to your mouth.
All right.
And just keep taking those deep breaths. A sigh is a good deep breath. Just take that and just doing that. Okay. And it's only a few minutes.
Yeah.
And we can do things that are hard for a few minutes like this. Easier as you once you get into it, kind of like just go into a roll.
Mm-hmm.
We're ready. We ready? Just remember to breathe.
All right. Thank you.
And so our final presentation on day one is by Donnie Williamson, A Cure for a Hidden Epidemic, helping victims recover from child abuse.
Hello, my name is Donnie Williamson, and my project is on trying to solve the plague that is child abuse. Sorry. From a young age, I've always been interested in this topic. As a victim myself, I can see what happens when child abuse can affect somebody. And I'm sorry, I got no sleep. It's sorry, I'm trying to take a breath. This was bad start. Whether the difficulty of recovering be from a lack of community or adults who just don't know how to connect with the children, some victims just may never recover at all. And thankfully I was able to mostly recover from my abuse, but I was incredibly lucky. Most people aren't. That's why I decided to ask the question, what are the best ways to recover from child abuse? All of my answers initially stem from adults. Obviously, no abuse happening is the ideal, but we are far from our ability to do that as a society. So the second best option is education. If adults can identify and know how to spot abuse on a child, it can stop before it gets to a major point. When people think of abuse, they mainly think of the physical contact that goes along with it, but statistics show that neglect and sexual abuse are the two most common forms of abuse in the country. Neglect in Virginia has gone down over the past few years, but the rate at which it's decreasing is much less than other states. Sexual abuse, however, sexual abuse and the deaths that relate with it have increased by 4% and 31% respectively. Most of those deaths stem from suicide from the abused person due to the mental health risks that are associated with abuse. Additionally, when you hear the jokes about the problems with faiths, specifically the Catholic Church and Christianity as a whole, it will only downplay the severity of of this issue. Even though you mainly heard about Catholicism and Christianity as a whole, other faiths such as Islam or Judaism also account for a large amount of the abuses that happen every year. Today and tomorrow, 4 children will be sexually assaulted by a member of a higher faith. It goes without saying that this is a problem that needs to be solved. So to do my part, I interned under the Madison County Victim Witness Program Coordinator, Dawn De La Cruz, who, as her title says, helps victims of often violent crime work through the court process and begin their road to recovery. Though most of her clients are adults, she has the resources and the ability to help anybody who walks through her doors. My time spent with her mostly included me reading pamphlets that included things like resources for the abused, statistics, and even escape plans for children and adults alike. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to be able to run an event with her where we held a candlelight vigil to celebrate the victims who were able to escape their unfortunate circumstances and have hope for those who couldn't. Additionally, I also planned on creating an awareness meeting and where the public could get involved and learn more about this, but due to time constraints, I was unable to do so. Next year, however, I plan on helping her with that. For my community service, I was, oh wait, this doesn't have the right slide. Anyway, I was supervised by members of the Bikers Against Child Abuse, with their names being Shadow and Doc. And the first thing I learned is that anonymity is their most important trait. When a child is inducted into Bikers Against Child Abuse, they are given a self-chosen name, which they are only to be referred to as their entirety in the program. After I did some research, I found out how important this is for self-confidence for the child. And I wanted to see if I could spread the influence of Bikers Against Child Abuse into our more local areas, since the closest one is like an hour drive away. Doing that leads me into the first part. Oh, well, there it is. The first part of my community service was delivering care packages to the closest homeless shelter that I could find in Culpeper. I also chose this one, which is Culpeper Housing and Shelter Services, because it is the only one that shelters whole families in the entirety of Orange, Culpeper, and Madison. And so we went to ask the lady who worked at the desk there what they needed most, and her answer was hygiene products, children's entertainment, and children's winter clothing. The first trip we had, which is pictured on screen, included 2 backpacks just in case a child needed to go to school and didn't have the resources. Children's entertainment, including coloring books, diaries, and children's books. And then hygiene, such as socks and toothbrushes and anything we could fit in that bag. Our second trip was mainly focused on and it doesn't have it again. Okay, my bad. The second trip included the winter clothing, which we went shopping for anything we could find, high quality winter clothing. And we gave that to be given out at the shelter's Christmas event. And the people who worked there were incredibly thankful. So I recommend anybody who has the ability, go donate something to them. They're always in need of it, especially since the homeless shelter in Orange closed down. My second part of my community service after the care packages were running an Instagram account for Madison County Victim Witness Program. I created posts just like this that included paragraph statistics and just like calling attention to the month. And the first one I did was Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as you can see. The second one was for November, which is Child Mental Health Awareness Month. Then I did one for December, which has the national event Dressember, which people, mostly women, wear high quality dresses to bring awareness to human trafficking. And finally, January, which is Stalking Awareness Month. I do this to take the load off of Dawn De La Cruz, my mentor, and she has been extremely thankful for it so far. Oh, there we go. For my impact, I follow the belief that if I even help one person, I did my job, and it was time well spent. So if any child from my care packages received something for Christmas and they were happy and they believe that that gift came from the person who runs a shelter and they gain even a little bit of that hope and trust they have from when they lost it from one of the two people who should love them unconditionally, then I believe I did my job. Secondly, this post alone reached 43 people, which means they spent substantive time reading and interacting with the post. And if even one person was called to action by this, then I believe I did my job to end child abuse, or to get closer to ending child abuse. And I hope by taking this leadership role that anybody else will also step up and do their part. For the future people, for the future Blue Ridge kids, I suggest, though it's contrary to what I'm saying, pick an easier topic. Having to go through social services means I had to do an unholy amount of paperwork and searching before I could find somebody who would take me. I had to get rejected by 10 people before I finally found somebody who'd be willing to work with me, which means I also had to start about a month late. But in all honesty, I wouldn't change it. I really love this topic, and that is the most important part of the project. Just find something you're interested in. And finally, thank you to everybody who has heard me out. Thank you to the judges. Thank you for the audience. Thank you to the 3 professors who not so kindly let me down saying I couldn't work with them. Thank you to Orange County Social Services, and thank you to Don De La Cruz especially. And thank you to Miss Carlton and Miss Herndon. Even though they made me majorly stressed, they just wanted to make sure I'd finish this project. Thank you. I'll get you in a second, Aiden. You. Oh, that's a great point. So I may not be going to college, but I do plan on continuing classes, at least at Germana, while I go up to Toledo and participate in a National Aviation School apprenticeship. In fact, I just got a call from them this morning asking me if I'm available to talk. So I'm not staying in state. That's one thing I know. Yes.
You talked a lot about just the education surrounding the concept. Touch a little bit more on the recovery aspect of child abuse.
Yes. Yeah, so the reason I talk so much about education is because the earlier it's stopped, the more likely the sufferer is able to recover. But another part is the adults taking responsibility. In a child's mind after they're abused, they connect anything that they can from their abuser to the people surrounding them. For example, if their abuser matches like a physical trait that another person around them has, they connect that in their mind to their abuser. I believe it is important for the adults surrounding them to be cognizant of that and either not have somebody who matches the exact physical description or make themselves look less imposing. Oh, Aiden, did you have a question? Okay. I learned that the problem was a lot worse than I initially thought. There comes a mentality with people who are abused that this is more normalized. Like it's normal to be abused and it's not something you should be like worried about. But when I finally did my research, I found out so many more are being abused in worse ways than I was. And it really makes me want to help them. That's why if I do eventually end up going to college after this year, I think I'm going to minor in something related to either early education or social services.